My father's last words to me weren't a goodbye. They were a death sentence. No daughter of mine works with computers. Then he ripped up my scholarship letter, right in front of me, tore it into tiny pieces and threw them in my face like confetti at a funeral. My mother? She just stood there, said nothing, did nothing. I was 22 years old, holding $900, a broken laptop, and a dream everyone said was stupid. I had nowhere to go. No plan B, nothing. Fast forward 3 years. Forbes puts my face in their magazine. My cybersecurity company is protecting billion-dollar corporations. And guess what? My family came crawling back. Not to say sorry, not to hug me, to beg me to save their dying business. They called me worthless. I became the one thing they desperately needed. This is how I did it. Let me take you back to that day. The day everything exploded. It was a Tuesday afternoon in Coral Gables, Florida. You know those neighborhoods where everyone drives luxury cars and lives in massive white houses with palm trees? That was us. Old money, corporate lawyers, country club memberships, the whole package. I walked through the front door holding the most important piece of paper of my life. A full scholarship to study cybersecurity. Everything paid for. Tuition, books, housing, everything. I thought my parents would be proud. I was so wrong. My father was standing in the living room, arms crossed. My mother sat on the sofa, hands folded, lips pressed tight. They looked like they were attending a funeral. "We need to talk," my father said. His voice was ice cold. I told him about the scholarship. I was smiling, excited, buzzing with joy. "Dad, this is incredible. Cybersecurity is the future. Companies are desperate for people who can protect their systems." He stared at me like I'd lost my mind. "You already have a job waiting," he said. "Your cousin Daniel got you a position at the firm. Finance. A real career. Respectable." I tried to explain. I didn't want to audit spreadsheets for the rest of my life. I wanted to build something. I wanted to stop hackers, prevent data breaches, protect people from criminals who ruin lives. I wanted to matter. That's when he exploded. "You think playing with computers is a career?" he shouted. His face turned red. Veins bulged in his neck. "You think you know better than me? Better than this entire family?" Before I could respond, he ripped the scholarship letter out of my hands, tore it into pieces, again and again until it was confetti falling on the marble floor. "No daughter of mine works in the tech industry," he said, voice shaking with rage. "If you want to destroy your future, do it somewhere else, not under my roof." I looked at my mother. Surely she'd say something. Surely she'd defend me. She stared at the floor, silent. My father pointed at the door. "Get out." I didn't cry. I was too shocked. I grabbed my backpack, the one stuffed with charging cables and a cracked laptop I'd bought with tutoring money. I walked to the door. He slammed it behind me so hard the windows shook. I stood there in the driveway, sweating in the Florida heat, and took inventory. $900 in my bank account. A 12-year-old Toyota that barely started. No family. No safety net, no backup plan. But here's what they didn't know. In my Dropbox, buried in a folder called School Projects, I had something they couldn't see, a prototype. The early version of a cybersecurity tool I'd been building for 2 years. A system that could detect hackers before they struck. I called it Sentinel. My father thought he was throwing out a failure. He had no idea he'd just unleashed something he'd one day desperately need. I got in my car and drove away from that house. I didn't look back. The girl they kicked out? She was about to become the woman they'd begged to save them. I moved into the worst apartment you can imagine. Seriously. It was in a rundown part of Miami, the kind of place where the AC barely worked and you could hear your neighbors arguing through paper-thin walls. Roaches? Yeah, we had those. The bathroom door didn't lock. The kitchen was basically a hot plate and a mini fridge that buzzed like a dying bee. My roommate was a woman named Alina. She was a bartender at some club downtown. She worked nights, slept during the day, and survived on tips and leftover fries she'd bring home in greasy paper bags. But you know what? Alina never judged me. Never asked why I was sleeping on an air mattress in the corner or why I ate ramen 5 nights a week. She just gave me the kitchen desk and said, "Don't hog the Wi-Fi." That desk became my entire world. During the day, I worked at a help desk for a second-tier cloud company. You know the job. People calling in asking, "Why won't my screen turn on?" Or, "Do I need to restart my computer?" I'd smile through the phone, solve their problem in 30 seconds, and count down the hours until I could go home and do real work. At night, I coded. Hours and hours of code. Building Sentinel line by line, testing it, breaking it, fixing it, improving it. My eyes burned. My back ached. I drank so much coffee I started seeing double. But I kept going because I believed in it. I had to. Some nights, I'd open LinkedIn. Big mistake. I'd see my cousin Daniel posting photos in expensive suits, shaking hands with politicians, getting awards at my dad's firm. Promoted to senior analyst. Keynote speaker at the finance summit. Meanwhile, I was debugging code at 2 a.m. in an apartment that smelled like old takeout. I'd close the tab, bite down the jealousy, and keep typing. The breakthrough came 6 months later. It was a Thursday night just after 1 a.m. I was running a test, a simulated data breach, small vulnerabilities, the kind most systems ignore, tiny cracks in the armor. My system didn't ignore them. Green dot, green dot, green dot. Then, suddenly, red. Breach detected. My code worked. It actually worked. I didn't scream. I didn't dance. I just sat there staring at the screen, whispering to myself, "It works. It actually works." That night, I opened a new folder. Sentinel version 1.0. The next year was brutal. I built version after version. Faster, smarter, leaner. I posted anonymous entries on cybersecurity forums. I applied to every hackathon within driving distance. I won some, lost most. But every single time I presented Sentinel, someone would ask, "You built this yourself?" Yes, alone, in a roach-infested apartment while eating leftover fries. Nobody asked who taught me. Good thing, because the answer was nobody. The people who should have believed in me didn't. 2 years in, something shifted. A recruiter from a fintech startup reached out after reading one of my blog posts about credential stuffing. They offered me a part-time security consultant gig. The pay wasn't great, but the access? Gold. Their back-end systems were a disaster. Vulnerabilities everywhere. I didn't exploit them. I documented them. Privately. Every flaw I found became a feature in my own tool. They paid me to see their weaknesses. I used that knowledge to build my strength. One night, Alina came home tipsy and tossed a magazine on the table. Wired. The cover story was Top 10 Young Cyber Innovators to Watch. I wasn't on the list, but one of the guys featured? He was quoting a blog post I'd written under a fake name. I smiled. It wasn't my time yet. Because some seeds grow quietly. Some empires are built in silence. My father thought silence meant failure. He had no idea I was building something invisible, something powerful, something that would one day make him pick up the phone and say the words I never thought I'd hear. "We need you." But that part? That comes later. Right now, I was still in the shadows, still coding, still hungry. And I was just getting started. 6 months after Alina threw that Wired magazine on our table, I got an email that changed everything. The subject line was simple. Request for consult. Urgent breach question. The sender was a compliance officer from a mid-sized fintech company I'd never heard of. Let's call them Blue Peak. They'd found one of my blog posts after Googling anomaly detection in credential leakage. I didn't get excited. These emails usually led nowhere. But when I opened it, something felt different. "We believe we've suffered a silent breach," they wrote. No ransomware, no shutdown, just quiet abnormalities in our logs. Would you be willing to review them? We'll pay your standard hourly rate. Confidentiality agreement attached. Here's the thing. I didn't have a standard rate. I didn't even have an invoice template. But I replied like I did this every day. $150 per hour. They responded instantly. Send over an NDA. We'll pay for 10 hours up front. I stared at the screen. This was it, my first real cybersecurity contract. Not a support ticket, not a bug bounty. A proper consulting gig. The breach wasn't dramatic, but it was real. The kind that quietly siphons customer data for months without anyone noticing. A misconfigured API endpoint buried in legacy code. I found it in 48 hours, flagged it, wrote up a patch, sent a full report. They paid me within the week. Then they asked the question that changed my life. Do you have a tool we could license? I stayed up 3 nights straight. I stripped Sentinel down to its core, added a dashboard, created a simple user interface. Nothing flashy, just pure functionality. When I sent them the demo, their head of IT called me. How is this not on the market? I'm still building it, I said. Well, he replied, you should keep going. Word spread fast. Quietly, but fast. Through cybersecurity Slack groups, compliance message boards, referrals from people who'd seen me at hackathons or stumbled on my code through GitHub. I wasn't trying to build a company. I was just trying to survive and build the best tool I could. But clients kept asking for support. Then customization. Then subscriptions. So I did it. I created a brand, Aurora Risk Systems, registered an LLC, built a website with 3 simple tabs: product, support, contact. I didn't put my name on it. I still remembered my father's words. No daughter of mine works in the tech industry. Fine. Maybe he didn't need to know I was his daughter. Alina quit bartending and became my full-time operations assistant. She helped me set up payroll, track expenses, send invoices. She was the first person who treated my project like a real business, who treated me like a real businesswoman. You know, she said one night over pizza, your dad's an idiot. I laughed. I didn't disagree, but part of me still believed he was right. That maybe I was delusional. That this was all just luck. That voice whispered in the dark hours telling me I wasn't good enough. Then the numbers started coming in. Monthly recurring revenue, $22,340. Annual run rate, $268,000. Profit margin, 87%. No venture capital, no partners. Just me, 2 part-timers, and a product nobody took seriously until it started quietly saving companies millions. One day, my mom texted me. Just a photo, my dad and my cousin at some business banquet. Both in suits, shaking hands with a local politician. No caption. Just the image. Like she wanted to remind me what success was supposed to look like. I stared at it for a moment. Then I opened my sales dashboard. I didn't reply to her text. Instead, I clicked submit on a business license application, converting my LLC into a C corporation. Then came the Forbes email, and everything exploded. The email came through our support inbox. We're compiling our annual 20 under 30 in tech list. Can you connect us with Aurora's founder? Stared at the screen. My hands shook. I'm the founder, I typed. Let me know what time works. The interview was with a journalist named Priya Patel. She asked questions nobody had ever asked. How did you handle rejection from the people who should have supported you? I laughed. You mean besides being thrown out for writing code? You were kicked out for choosing tech? My dad's a corporate lawyer, old money. He said if I wanted to be a computer girl, I could do it elsewhere. She leaned forward. This is going to resonate with so many people. Walking away from your family's expectations doesn't mean you failed. It means you had the courage to build your own path. Courage, I'd never called it that. 2 weeks later, I woke up to 60 notifications, emails, Twitter mentions, LinkedIn requests. I opened Twitter. Forbes. Meet Lauren Vega, 27-year-old founder of Aurora Risk Systems, quietly protecting Fortune 500 companies, 20 under 30, women in tech. Full-page photo, me in a hoodie, monitors glowing behind me. The girl they called Incompetent was now on a global innovators list. That afternoon, my phone rang. Mom. We hadn't spoken in 3 years, not one word. I let it ring. Twice, 3 times. Third call, I answered. Lauren. Her voice was soft. Strange. Yeah. Why didn't you tell us? I almost laughed. I didn't think you'd care. We're your family. You weren't when I needed one. Silence. Your father saw the article. He's shaken. Shaken because I succeeded or because people found out? She didn't answer. He wants to talk. I looked around my condo, triple monitors, whiteboard covered in product notes, my team on Slack, investor calls filling my calendar. Why, now that I'm worth something? Her voice cracked. Because we didn't understand. You didn't want to. Long pause. He wants to meet. No pressure. I'll think about it. I hung up. 3 days later, an email landed in Aurora's inbox. Subject, please read this, from my dad. A formal letter, typed like a legal document. He apologized. Kind of. Said he'd reacted emotionally, that he feared I was ruining my future, that my world scared him because he didn't understand it. You were building something I couldn't see, he wrote, and I punished you for my ignorance. Then came the final paragraph. I've spoken to the partners at the firm. We'd like to explore securing our infrastructure. Aurora has experience with financial clients. We're willing to pay the audit fee. I read it 3 times. There it was. Not reconciliation, business. They didn't want their daughter back. They needed my company. I sat there for hours staring at that email. Part of me wanted to delete it. Part of me wanted to write something brutal and satisfying. Instead, I opened a new document. Client contract. Standard terms. Full audit fee, $60,000. System monitoring, $10,000 monthly. No negotiation. No family discount. If they wanted me now, they'd pay full price. I hit send. The reply came in 4 minutes. We accept your terms. Finance will wire payment by Friday. I closed my laptop and walked to the window. The Miami skyline glowed in the distance. They'd thrown me out with $900 and called me worthless. Now they were paying me $70,000 just to tell them how broken they were. The girl they disowned had become the expert they desperately needed. And this was just the beginning. I didn't respond to my father's email myself. I had my operations lead, Serena, handle it. She was the type of woman who'd managed merger paperwork during an earthquake without breaking a sweat. Treat them like any other client, I told her. Full intake form, NDA, standard process. Any personal connection I should know about? She asked. They're my family, but don't let that change anything. She nodded. Then I won't. The video call was scheduled for Thursday morning. I logged in 2 minutes early. Camera on, microphone muted, professional. When they joined, it felt like stepping into an alternate reality. My father's hair was grayer than I remembered. His tie was too tight, like he was choking on his own tension. My mother sat beside him, hands folded perfectly on the table, smile thin and polite. A junior partner I didn't recognize sat in the corner, probably taking notes. Lauren, my dad said, trying to sound neutral. Thank you for agreeing to this meeting. I looked directly into the camera. My voice was ice. Aurora Risk Systems welcomes all prospective clients. I saw my mother flinch at the formality. I walked them through the audit process. Compliance standards, threat modeling, endpoint scanning, penetration tests. I'd done this presentation a dozen times, but this one felt different. Every word was a blade. At the end, my father cleared his throat. I've reviewed the scope. We're prepared to move forward with a 6-month contract. We need to restore client trust. You understand? I do, I said flatly. But Aurora doesn't guarantee PR outcomes. We prevent breaches. We don't fix reputations. My mother looked down. Of course, my father replied, voice tight. Then came pricing. $60,000 for the initial audit, $10,000 monthly for ongoing monitoring. No negotiation. He didn't even blink. Our finance department will wire payment by Friday. Desperation smells like instant agreement. You'll receive onboarding documents Monday, I said. Serena will coordinate your start date. He hesitated, then dropped the business tone. Lauren, is there room to discuss reconciliation? Personally, I mean. There it was, the real ask. I paused. Let the silence hang. If this audit goes well, I said slowly, and your firm passes our standards without interference or pushback, then maybe we can have a personal conversation. Off the record. He nodded. Fair. The call ended. They disconnected. I stared at the empty screen for a long moment, then closed my laptop and walked out onto the balcony. 2 weeks later, the audit began. Their systems were a disaster. No endpoint encryption, default admin passwords on multiple databases, expired SSL certificates on client portals. It was like walking through a glass building and finding all the fire alarms disconnected. I submitted the initial findings. Brutal, honest, professional. Then something unexpected happened. My cousin Daniel emailed me directly. Subject: Hey, we should catch up. Didn't expect to see you leading this project, but honestly, you were always better than us at this stuff. Let me know if you want to grab a drink. I mean it. I stared at the email. He'd never been cruel. Just silent. Complicit. Quiet during family dinners when my dad mocked me. Silent at my graduation when they joked my degree was worthless. Now he wanted to reconnect. I didn't reply, but I didn't delete it either. By the end of the month, their firm had passed the audit. Barely. We flagged over a dozen critical vulnerabilities, patched them with strict protocols. Aurora saved them. No question. I sent the final report and closed the case. That night, another email. From my mother. Subject: Just coffee. Would you be willing to meet? No agendas, no business, just me and you and a quiet coffee shop. I'd really like that. I stared at the message. My father wanted business. My mother wanted forgiveness. I didn't say yes right away, but I didn't say no either, because maybe the real audit hadn't even started yet. I picked the coffee shop. Not out of spite, out of control. It was a quiet corner place in Coconut Grove. Chipped tables, ceiling fans humming, handwritten chalkboard menus that hadn't changed in years, the kind of place that smelled like burnt espresso and old wood. I arrived early, ordered an iced coffee, chose the booth farthest from the window. My mother arrived 12 minutes late. Pearl earrings, cream blouse, handbag clutched like armor. Her heels clicked sharp on the tile floor. I stood briefly, nodded. Hi, Mom. Lauren. She smiled softly, eyes darting around nervously. You look successful. I resisted the urge to laugh. Thanks. It's been a busy year. She sat down and folded her hands, the same way she always did when she was uncomfortable. I know. I've read everything. Really? Even the technical stuff? Well, the headlines mostly. She laughed lightly, then stopped when I didn't join her. Silence. You've built something incredible, she said. I stirred my coffee slowly. I did. Without any of you. She flinched, just slightly. I want to apologize, she said quietly, for not standing up for you, for letting him say what he said. I should have. You didn't. My voice was calm, even cold. You watched him throw me out. I had nowhere to go, Mom. No plan. And you just stood there. Her lips tightened. I thought it was temporary, that you'd cool off and come back. I didn't cool off, I said. I got focused. She looked up. I could see the years written around her eyes now. Worry, guilt, the weight of missed birthdays and unanswered calls. He didn't mean it, Lauren. Not really. I leaned forward. He meant every word, that I was throwing away my future, that no daughter of his would work in tech, that I was embarrassing the family. Pause. He's proud of you now. I raised an eyebrow. He should be. She swallowed hard. He doesn't know how to say it. I shook my head slowly. He doesn't have to. She looked confused. He doesn't? He had his chance. I'm not here for him. I'm here because you asked. So if there's something you want to say it. But don't speak for him. That's when her voice cracked. I was scared that if I supported you, he'd turn on me too. I didn't know how to choose between you and my marriage. I let that sit for a moment. I didn't ask you to choose, I said, softer now. I asked you to believe in me. She wiped her eye quickly, embarrassed. You were always so smart, but I didn't understand your world. That's okay, I said. You didn't have to understand it. You just had to stop dismissing it. Another long silence. Just the hum of the fans and the clink of cups at other tables. Do you want a relationship with us again? She asked quietly. I considered that. Really considered it. I don't want things to go back to what they were, I said. Because what they were was silence, judgment, and pressure. She nodded slowly. But, I continued, I'm open to something new, something honest, where I don't have to shrink to fit someone's image of me. Her eyes welled up. I would like that. We sat quietly for a while. She asked about my office, my team, whether I was dating anyone. Small talk parents return to when the smoke clears. When we stood to leave, she reached into her purse and pulled out a small worn envelope. Your grandmother asked me to give you this, if you ever made it. Abuela Rosa? She nodded. She always said you were building something bigger than we could see. I think she knew before any of us. I took the envelope gently. Inside was a photo. Me at 14, hunched over my first computer. One of those clunky white towers we'd bought secondhand. Wires tangled everywhere. A look of total concentration on my face. Behind me stood Abuela, grinning like she knew a secret the world hadn't figured out yet. Tucked behind the photo was a handwritten note. Mija, they won't see your power at first, but you keep building. The world will catch up. Love, Abuela. I pressed my lips together to keep them from shaking. Thank you, I whispered. My mother reached out, unsure. I let her touch my shoulder. Let's do this right this time, she said. I gave a small nod. We'll see. That night, back at my condo, I framed the photo, placed it on my shelf next to the Forbes magazine and my first Aurora check. 3 symbols: belief, recognition, independence. I wasn't done building, but maybe, just maybe, I wasn't building alone anymore. 3 months later, a formal invitation arrived in the mail. Thick envelope, gold foil, embossed lettering. You are cordially invited to the 35th anniversary gala of Vega and Associates. Special guest of honor, Lauren Vega, founder and CEO, Aurora Risk Systems. I stared at it in disbelief. No personal note, no apology, just my name in bold letters for the firm that once pretended I didn't exist. A few days later, Serena walked into my office. The Vega firm needs to confirm your attendance. Catering needs numbers. I looked up. Did they pay the renewal fee? Wired last Friday. Of course they did. Tell them I'll be there. But I'm not staying long. The gala was at the Coral Gables Country Club. I hadn't been there in years. Not since I was the awkward cousin checking code on my phone during holiday brunches. This time, I arrived in a sleek black suit. Hair pinned to the back, no +1. No apologies, just me. The ballroom was exactly the same. Arched ceilings, chandeliers, polished marble floors. Except now the walls displayed buzzwords like innovation, security, growth. And Aurora's name was everywhere. On guest lists, display screens. My company, once just a folder on a laptop, now sharing space with industry giants. I didn't seek out my parents, but I saw them. My mother stood near the entrance talking to her usual circle. She glanced at me, hesitated, then waved softly. I nodded back. My father kept his distance. He looked tired, like someone who knew the narrative had shifted and wasn't sure how to catch up. Old acquaintances approached throughout the night. We always knew you had something. Your parents must be so proud. Cybersecurity, wow. Didn't see that coming. I smiled politely, shook hands, posed for photos. One cousin whispered, "You proved them all wrong." But I hadn't come to prove anything anymore. I'd outgrown the need to be understood by people who never tried to understand me. Near the end of the evening, Serena nudged me. Your dad's by the exit, alone. I looked over. No spotlight, no microphone, just a man in a suit who once threw his daughter out like trash. Should I get the car? I shook my head. Not yet. I walked toward him slowly. He straightened his jacket, cleared his throat. We stood there for a moment, two people who hadn't really spoken in years. You came, he said. You invited me. I wasn't sure you would. I wasn't either. He looked around, lowered his voice. Your grandmother would have loved this. I looked down, then back up. She did, even when it was just a plan on a napkin. He nodded, like he wanted to say more but couldn't. Then he simply offered his hand. I took it. It wasn't warm. It wasn't emotional. It was acknowledgement. Maybe that was enough. Back home, I kicked off my shoes, poured wine, and sat at my desk. Abuela Rosa's framed photo watched over everything. Next to it, the Forbes feature. Beside that, my original sticky note. Pattern recognition through passive anomaly detection. The idea that started it all. I pulled out the envelope and read Abuela's letter again. Mija, they won't see your power at first. Keep building. The world will catch up. And I had. I'd built something real. Something valuable. Something they couldn't ignore even if they never fully understood it. Some people are born into legacy. Others write it. And some code it, line by line in silence, until the world can no longer look away.
At the family party with fairy lights strung like promises overhead, and laughter echoing off champagne glasses, my father raised his glass, looked straight at me and said, "Tanya, try not to embarrass us tonight like you always do." Some cousins laughed. My aunt sipped her wine. My mother looked down at her plate. No one said anything. Neither did I. I simply excused myself, walked out past the perfectly trimmed hedges, got in my car, and drove away. No tears, no drama, just a silence sharp enough to slice through every memory of trying to belong. That was the last time I attended a Thompson gathering, because that night I stopped trying to earn their pride. And a year later, I bought my dream house. Then I threw the most beautiful party of my life, and they found out on Instagram. Growing up a Thompson meant learning early that there were only 3 acceptable definitions of success: degrees, titles, and quiet obedience. My brother Michael followed that script flawlessly. Yale Medical now, a well-respected surgeon with 2 kids who never wear anything wrinkled. My sister Emily, made partner at a law firm by 31 and married a man who owns 3 golf memberships. Me, I painted on walls, rearranged furniture obsessively as a child, and once turned the garage into a greenhouse for a 6th grade science fair. I wasn't the golden child. I was the she's creative one. Every time I shared something I was proud of, like a mural I got commissioned for a community center, or a sustainable redesign project, I got the same reaction. A tilt of the head, a polite smile, then a quick subject change to Michael's latest surgery or Emily's new Tesla. I remember once overhearing my aunt tell someone at a wedding, "Tanya's sweet, she just hasn't found her lane yet." I was 29, running my own small interior design studio. Living in a sunlit apartment I curated down to the last detail. But to them, I was still the strange one with candles and mood boards. They didn't see intention. They saw instability. They didn't hear passion. They heard risk. I tried for years to close the gap. I'd show up early to family dinners, offer to decorate for events, even helped redo my parents' entire living room free of charge. When they hosted Emily's engagement party, I built the floral arch by hand. They said it looked quirky. When I gave Michael a watercolor sketch of his newborn son's nursery, he laughed and said, "Thanks, but we're going with a real decorator." By the time I turned 30, I stopped offering. Not because I was angry, but because I realized some people will never respect a version of success they don't recognize. Holidays for most people are about warmth, tradition, shared memories. For me, they were landmines wrapped in ribbon. Every Thanksgiving, I'd walk in with a pie I baked from scratch, only to hear my dad say, "Emily brought wine. Michael brought prime rib." Tanya brought feelings, I guess. Everyone chuckled like it was clever. I'd just smile and head to the kitchen where I belonged. Apparently at Christmas, while my siblings bragged about bonuses and real estate, someone would inevitably turn to me and ask, "So are you still doing that artsy stuff?" As if my career were a phase like braces or journaling. The worst was Mother's Day 2 years ago. I had spent days designing a custom herb wall for my mom's garden. She loved cooking with fresh basil. I built it by hand, stenciled her initials in the corner. She barely looked at it. Meanwhile, Emily handed her a luxury handbag and the room erupted in applause. No one even noticed I had dirt under my nails. They never yelled. They didn't need to. Everything was delivered with a smile, a clink of a glass, a pat on the shoulder like passive aggression wrapped in monogrammed napkins. The unspoken message was always clear. I was the odd one, the aesthetic one, the disappointment who dressed nice but couldn't really contribute. I started dreading the invitations, not because I didn't love family, but because every gathering became a mirror showing me just how invisible I truly was. One Easter, I arrived late, and my name card was missing. They gave me a paper one someone wrote in marker. Emily laughed. "Look, Tanya's got the arts and crafts place." Even my chair wobbled. I tried to laugh it off. I always did. But with each smirk, each jab, something inside me dulled. It wasn't that I didn't belong. It was that they made sure I never forgot it. So by the time that anniversary party rolled around, the one where my father made that remark in front of 50 people, the damage wasn't sudden. It was slow, cumulative, like a canvas layered with so many insults it could no longer breathe. And that night, I finally stepped away from the painting. It was their 40th anniversary. The Thompsons rented out a vineyard estate with twinkling garden lights, a jazz trio, and a string of catered courses no one could pronounce. Emily organized the seating chart. Michael brought a slideshow. I wore a dress. I made myself silk dusky rose hand-stitched neckline. I thought maybe, just maybe tonight would be different. During dinner, Emily raised her glass and toasted our parents with practiced grace. Michael followed, quoting a philosopher I'd never heard of. Then someone, probably Aunt Linda, called out, "Tanya, your turn." I hesitated. My fork hovered over lamb. Dad looked at me and smirked. "Sure, let's hear from the family artist." I stood heart-thumping against my ribs. "I don't have a rehearsed speech," I began, "but I just wanted to say thank you for showing us that longevity and love is possible, even when that's as far as I got." My father raised his glass and cut me off, laughing. "Maybe spare us the poetry this time, huh? Let's keep it festive." The room chuckled. My cheeks burned. I opened my mouth and closed it again. Everyone was watching. I smiled, small, tight, sat back down. No one said a word, not even my mother. The band started playing again. Emily leaned over and whispered, "You're too sensitive. It's just his way." But it wasn't just his way. It was always his way. Every dig disguised as humor. Every interruption framed as lighten up. Every time I opened my mouth and got edited in real time. And suddenly I saw it. Years of biting my tongue, of trying to be polite, palatable, pleasant, of shrinking. The lamb on my plate had gone cold. The wine tasted bitter. My hands trembled under the tablecloth. So I stood up again. Only this time I didn't raise a glass. I didn't say a word. I picked up my clutch, nodded once to no one in particular, and walked straight out through the garden, past the fairy lights, past the topiaries, past the vintage Cadillac they'd rented for photos. No one followed me. I got in my car, drove away, windows down, dress fluttering, and for the first time in a decade, I wasn't leaving in shame. I was leaving in silence. And silence, I realized, can be its own revolution. Part 4, the vanishing act that built me. After that night, I didn't make a dramatic announcement. No explosive group chat exit. No phone calls, just silence. I didn't attend Michael's daughter's recital. I missed Emily's charity gala. I skipped Thanksgiving, Christmas, even my mother's birthday brunch. At first there were texts. "Are you okay?" Then came the sarcasm. Too busy for family now. Eventually, nothing. And that was the gift. Without the constant echo of their expectations, I finally had room to hear my own voice. I moved across the state to a small coastal town where no one knew the Thompson name. I rented a one-bedroom loft above a flower shop and took on small interior projects, quiet homes, thoughtful spaces. I started sketching again, not for clients, for myself. I spent mornings walking barefoot across hardwood floors, coffee in one hand, pencils in the other. The stillness felt strange at first, like wearing shoes on the wrong feet, but then it started to feel like truth. One day, an email arrived from an architecture studio in California. They had seen my work on a blog. Someone had posted photos of a sunroom I redesigned with floating light sculptures. "We're launching a wellness retreat," the email said. "Would you be open to leading the spatial concept?" I blinked at the screen, reread it twice. It wasn't a job offer. It was a doorway. That project became the heartbeat of my year. I poured myself into it. Every wood grain, every window angle, every choice designed for breathability and beauty. And when the retreat opened 6 months later, it was covered by Design Space magazine under the title Nature Reimagined, a living space that heals. They quoted me in the article, "Not Emily, not Michael, not my father, me." They asked what inspired the design, and I said I wanted to build something that made people feel like they belonged, even the quiet ones. With the project's success came a bonus. Not millions, but enough. Enough to stop renting. Enough to choose. I found it one Sunday morning in an architectural listing tucked in the corner of a paper catalog. A 2-story home tucked between pines with wraparound glass walls, a garden that caught fog like silk, and a studio room with skylights. It wasn't perfect, but it felt like possibility. I closed the deal, quietly unpacked in silence, hung my favorite print. "You are allowed to take up space above the fireplace." No housewarming posts, no announcements, just a whisper to myself. "You're not an embarrassment, you're a beginning." And then I started planning the party. I called it the gathering on the invitations. White linen cardstock with blind-pressed floral embossing hand, addressed in gold ink. No digital RSVP. No event page. Just an old-fashioned reply card tucked inside with one simple line. "Let's celebrate what we build for ourselves." I mailed out 35 of them to friends I met through design school, past clients who became lifelong allies, and 2 mentors who never stopped believing I was more than the artsy one. None went to anyone named Thompson. I wasn't trying to be cruel. I was choosing peace. The house was ready just in time. Honeyed wood floors, floor-to-ceiling windows, soft pendant lights that cast golden halos at dusk. The garden was where the real magic happened. I hung string lights from cedar posts, scattered rose petals down the stone walkway, and set a long oak table under a linen canopy. Everything was curated with intention. Candles made from bergamot and amber floral arrangements, grown by a woman I met at the farmer's market, a live acoustic duo playing Norah Jones and soft jazz classics. The chef I hired served slow-roasted root vegetables, herbed lamb, and lavender creme brulee in handmade ceramic dishes. People arrived just before sunset. They stepped through the entryway with wide eyes, letting out quiet gasps as they saw the light pouring through the space. "This looks like a spread from Dwell," someone whispered. But no one said, "Did your dad help with this?" No one asked, "Where's the rest of the family?" Because these were people who knew my story, not the edited version served with wine and judgment, but the real one, the woman who was once called too dramatic, now standing in a home built entirely on her own terms. Later that night, after the toast, after the last song, after the second round of espresso martinis, my friend Sarah pulled me aside near the fire pit. "You realize this is your homecoming, right?" she said, smiling. I shook my head. "No," I whispered. "This is the first time I've ever arrived." Someone took a picture of me, then standing barefoot on the porch, the garden behind me glowing like something out of a dream, string lights wrapped around my wrist like bracelets of light. Sarah posted it the next morning with the caption, "She was never lost, just never allowed to lead." That photo, that caption, it lit the fuse. My DMs exploded. Old high school friends, college classmates, even my former art teacher commented, "You've always been magic, Tanya." But buried between the well wishes and confetti emojis were names I hadn't seen in months. Emily, Michael, Mom, and then Dad. They hadn't been invited, but they had seen everything. They saw it the next morning, the photo, the caption, the laughter in the comments. The kind of joy you can't fake. It didn't take long. The first message came from Mom. "I saw the pictures. The house looks expensive. Why didn't you tell us?" Then Emily, "You really planned a whole event and didn't think we might want to be there." Michael chimed in by tagging me in an old family photo with the caption, "Some people forget their roots." And Dad. He sent me a screenshot of Sarah's post with one sentence beneath it. "So this is who you are now." No question mark, just quiet accusation. I didn't answer, not out of spite, but because there was nothing left to explain. They hadn't asked about my life in over a year. Not once had they called to see how I was doing, where I was living, what I was building. But now that there were lights, flowers, applause, suddenly, I was theirs again. Their narrative couldn't hold me as the embarrassment anymore, and that made me dangerous. The next day, Emily posted a picture of a Thompson family dinner at a long table, smiling tightly, a caption underneath, "Some things money can't buy, real love, real connection." The comments poured in. "Aunt Linda, exactly. Family first, no matter what. Mom, we raised our kids with love. That hasn't changed. Michael, no egos here, just roots that don't break." I didn't comment. I didn't react, but someone else did. Sarah screenshot the entire thread and sent it to me with one word: performative. She wasn't wrong, because it wasn't love, beatsy love, that made them respond. It was loss of control. For the first time, they weren't the narrators of my life, and they couldn't stand it. 3 days later, an email arrived from Dad. Short, cold, heavy. Subject: Your choices. Message: We saw everything. You embarrassed this family. You acted like we didn't exist. You made people think we don't love you. Maybe next time, you should think before putting on a show. You should know people are talking. People were talking, but not in the way he thought. I had just been asked to speak at a Women in Design conference in Seattle. My inbox was full of collaborations. A podcast host reached out asking for a feature. How to build a life that doesn't ask for permission. And while my family tried to rewrite the narrative in real time, I was living proof of a truth they couldn't bend. I didn't need to prove them wrong. I just needed to stop trying to be right for them. That evening, I lit candles along the garden wall, sat under the stars with a glass of wine, and posted just one sentence to my story. White text on black screen. Silence isn't distance. Sometimes it's healing. They watched it, all of them. But this time they said nothing. The message came quietly. No group thread, no guilt-laced subject line, just a single text from Emily. Coffee, just us, no performance. I stared at it for a long moment, then typed back. Neutral place, no expectations. We met at a quiet cafe tucked between a bookstore and a flower shop. My kind of sanctuary. She was already there when I arrived, tapping her spoon against a cappuccino, her shoulders unnaturally tight. "Hey," she said. I sat down. "Hey." For a moment, we said nothing. Then she exhaled hard, breaking the stillness. "Look, I know we've been awful. I won't defend it." She stirred her drink slowly. But that party, seeing it online, not being there, it felt like a slap. I raised an eyebrow. A slap? Yes, we were excluded. I took a slow sip of my tea before replying. "Emily, I've been excluded my entire life. From jokes, from conversations, from mattering." She looked down. I continued. That night wasn't about revenge. It was the first time I celebrated myself without apology. She nodded slowly. "I get that now, or I'm trying to." There was silence again, but this time it didn't feel combative. Emily finally said, "You always scared us, Tanya. You never fit into the blueprint. You felt unpredictable." I laughed quietly. "You mean I didn't follow the family formula?" She smiled faintly. Something like that. Then she looked up, eyes clearer. What would it take for us to try again? I leaned in calm but firm. You don't get to rewrite me. You don't get to poke fun and call it just teasing. If you want to be in my life, you come in as an equal. No hierarchy, no performance, and absolutely no expectations of access. Emily blinked, then nodded. Okay, she whispered. That's fair. She didn't ask to see the house, didn't ask for introductions or invites or favors, just this. Can I try to do better? I looked at her for a long moment. You can try. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't closure, but it was real. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I had to shrink to be heard. 2 weeks later, I got an email from the editorial team at Dwella design publication I'd admired for years. They wanted to do a full feature. Women who build differently. I almost said no. Then I remembered how long I'd stayed small to make others feel big. I said yes. The interview was honest. I talked about leaving a life where I was constantly the footnote about designing homes not just for beauty, but for breadth for people who had been made to feel like too much or not enough. They asked about inspiration. I didn't name names, but I did say this. Sometimes the places we leave shape us just as much as the ones we build. When the article came out, they used a photo of me standing barefoot in my studio, sunlight streaming through the skylight, paint smudges on my fingertips. The caption read, Tanya Thompson, 33. Built her space the way she lives deliberately and without asking for permission. It went quietly viral. Design clients reached out. Old professors sent notes of pride. Even a woman I once met at a networking event messaged, Your story helped me walk away from people who never clapped for me. And my family, they watched in silence. No more passive-aggressive posts. No more guilt-laced voicemails. Just the quiet realization that they no longer held the center of my orbit. That weekend, I hosted another dinner small. Intimate mentors, friends Sarah and Emily. She brought a bottle of wine and a simple bouquet of wildflowers. As we cleared the table that night, she lingered by my bookshelf, running her fingers across the spines. You know, she said, I think this is the first time I've seen you without armor. I smiled. That's because it's the first time I've felt safe without it. Later, after everyone left, I walked out into the garden barefoot again. The string light swayed gently. A soft wind danced across my collarbone. I didn't check my phone. I didn't need a headline. Just this space stillness and the knowing that I hadn't burned bridges. I'd simply built a better home where I no longer had to beg for a seat at the table. Because this time, I made the table. Tanya learned that true fulfillment comes from embracing her authentic self, not conforming to others' expectations. Years of her family's dismissive remarks taught her that their approval was conditional, tied to a narrow definition of success. By stepping away from their judgment, she discovered the power of silence and self-acceptance. Building her dream home and hosting a party on her terms showed her she didn't need their validation to thrive. Tanya's lesson was clear: living deliberately, without apology, creates a space where she belongs, free from the need to prove herself to those who never truly saw her.